I'm Bev, and I'm the CEO of Harvey Nash Group. As many of you may know, we're a talent and technology services consultancy, and we've been recruiting in the technology space for over 3 decades. We live and breathe technology skills and talent, so it's probably no surprise then that diversity and inclusion is something very close to the group's heart. It's also close to my heart. I graduated with a computer science degree and then went on to have a career as a business analyst and more latterly as a CIO, before bringing my passion for people in tech and careers into the job I have now. I've loved my journey in the tech sector, but as a woman, I felt some headwind. For instance, in one of my first board meetings, I sat down as the only female in the room, and one of the other board members asked if I could make the tea. Yes, I said, as long as next time it's your turn. When I became a CIO, it was over 6 months before I met another female doing a similar job. Of course, that was a number of years ago, but when you fast forward to today, the sector still has its challenges. Firstly, and this won't be a surprise, there's a lack of women. Despite many efforts, the proportion of women in tech teams has remained stubbornly low at around 15%. Secondly, when it comes to management roles, the typical leader remains very much white and male. Whilst tech broadly reflects the ethnic makeup of the UK's population, with 20% of tech talent being non-white, for management roles, this proportion drops to just 10%. For women, that drops even further. Clearly something is wrong. But, and here as we come to the main topic, has the pandemic given us a chance to begin to correct it? Well, one thing's for sure, the pandemic has very successfully changed the nature of work. In preliminary results from our annual digital leadership survey, CIOs and tech leaders are expecting their teams to be working from home typically 3 days per week or more in the long run. Prior to the pandemic, it was just 1 day. This change of location has brought about a massive change in how we work. Zoom, Teams, online chat has now replaced meeting rooms and the water cooler as the primary mode of communication. It's also moved conversations away from bars, clubs, and golf courses that may have favoured one group and helped democratise how we communicate. Everyone can access Zoom. Everyone can take part in surveys and online feedback. Working from home has also made it much more easy to juggle other responsibilities like childcare or caring for a parent. It's brought a cultural shift in how we view work and home. I've had video calls with team members talking through their strategy whilst looking after a child on their knee. It's been lovely to see it, and I think our organisation is stronger and culturally richer for it. Working from home has also shifted people's attitudes to mental health. It's now much more possible to ask people how they're getting on and get an honest reply rather than that typically British and not useful response of not too bad. This is good news, and many of the organisations I speak to are really taking wellbeing seriously. At Harvey Nash Group, for instance, we've spent a lot of time investing in supporting mental health and physical health, and have just recently launched our Wellbeing Hub, which is entirely open to everyone, which you can visit by going to the harveynashgroup.com site. So surely all of these factors would improve diversity and inclusion. Well, as a technologist at heart, I'm a data person. So let's return to the digital leadership survey. What the preliminary data is telling us is that home working is definitely improving people's work-life balance. 6 in 10 think it is. It's also improved our productivity, with over half feeling they get more work done every week. But this has come at a cost. Most significantly, 6 in 10 have reported a decline in mental health. And tied to this, 4 in 10 report a decline in staff engagement and collaboration. When looking at inclusion, the picture is more mixed. Broadly, a similar proportion reported an improvement as they did a decline. And a recent number saw no change at all. It's also the case that this, just because people are now only a button press away, it still requires that button to be pressed. Different people react differently to taking part in online meetings and having their face in the backdrop of their home beamed into the worlds of their colleagues. For instance, I recently had an operation on my nose, and in the days immediately following the operation, I needed to be on a number of important town halls. Although I chose to have my camera very much on, it did feel uncomfortable. The reality is the world people are wondering across the world, people are wondering how the look and sound in these meetings. I know I do. It seems then that whilst home working has been successful in getting things done, well, it's also created a sense of isolation and a lack of connection. Despite the ease by which people can now communicate, overall people feel no more included now than they did prior to the pandemic. And we're only just beginning to find our way with this new world. As organizations begin to return to the office, many with hybrid homework models, the world is going to get even more complicated. For instance, how do you make a meeting more inclusive when 3 people appear in person enjoying coffees and chats before and after the meeting, and 2 appear squeezed onto a 15-inch laptop screen with a tinny loudspeaker? But if this paints a negative picture of inclusion in a pandemic world, don't let it, because I believe our new world of work could be a game changer in how inclusive and diverse our sector becomes. We just need to work it out. The fact, though, flexible hybrid working for anyone at any time can take part in work is surely a gift for us all. And this is happening at a time when demand for technology professionals with a much wider, diverse skill set is an all-time high. But inclusion doesn't just happen. If the pandemic has changed where we work and how we communicate, so much else must change as well. If we're seeing a greater increase in isolation and mental health issues in our teams, we need new ways of reaching out to people and helping keep them engaged. For instance, at Harvey Nash, we've spent a lot of time on off-site and face-to-face meetings, as well as invested in online alternatives to video conference like Be Together, where people impact as avatars. It's also invested in platforms in ways that measure employee engagement and well-being. All of these different elements are really important. There is no magic way of doing this. It's going to take a lot of different ways of bringing this together. None of this has been perfect, but we, like many of our peers, are experimenting and finding what works and what doesn't. We need to think and really rethink how we view people's working time. Now everyone is online and available. It's all too easy to send meetings at lunchtimes or out of office hours. As leaders, we need to understand the impact of this on our people. We need to think about how and where we recruit people and onboard them. For instance, one client we worked with only ever recruited from the New York region, but their most recent hire is from Saudi Arabia. We need to think through what our employment offer is and make it relevant to this new world. And ultimately, though, we need to think and rethink how we use our cherished physical presence. This is important. Face-to-face communication still carries great value. In fact, in many ways, perhaps even more than ever. We need to think about when and how people come into the office and to make the experience incredibly rewarding and worthwhile. So just to bring this to a conclusion, although we have yet to see evidence of improving diversity and inclusion during the pandemic, it's still very early days and we have so much more to travel on our pandemic journey. The good news is the tech sector really has the potential to be highly inclusive. I was attracted to the sector because of its diversity of thought. In fact, the first person I ever saw at work with had green hair and was in the IT team. The tech team has long been a friendly home to a wide range of people, tastes, and personal stories. The tech sector is also open to change. 10 years ago, Harvey Nash Group introduced into our annual tech talent survey alternative tick box options to male and female. In that first year, no one used these options properly. Instead, we had people tell us their gender was Jedi or use it as an opportunity to pass comment. Fast forward 10 years, and around 1% of people are selecting options other than male or female, a proportion in line with wider UK estimates, and there are no negative comments, and there's not a Jedi in sight. We should embrace, celebrate, and magnify the sector's ability to evolve, but most of all, we must make sure that we make the necessary changes in how we operate. Today's world is very different from pre-COVID, and it will never return to the way it was before.